Well, so you mentioned Drew Lock. We can kind of get into that a little bit. The Broncos quarterback battle between him and Teddy Bridgewater. Really, nobody stepped up to this point, and I don't know if we should be surprised by that or not. We know Drew Lock has a tendency to go for the big play, which means he will sometimes hit it, but also make a big mistake. We know that's kind of the opposite of Teddy Bridgewater, but the fact that neither has really shown anything to this point, I don't know. I guess that's pretty much what we should have expected. But Drew Lock, nonetheless, will get the first crack at starting in the preseason. Teddy Bridgewater will start their second game. I know you've bought stock into Teddy this year, but unless he, like, to me, Drew Lock just has to be the guy unless he is just absolute dog shit. And Teddy clearly hasn't taken a step forward. So I guess what are you reading into Drew getting the first reps? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter at all to me. I think that this is just, he is our incumbent starting quarterback. The GM did not have anything to do with his drafting. He did have something to do with the acquisition of Teddy Bridgewater. So I would actually give Bridgewater a leg up in this. I know VP of football operations or whatever John Elway promoted himself to after going out on a limb and securing Peyton Manning as a free agent. Like, nobody saw that coming, or at least being a good investment. They're giving him the first shot, but it's actually, in a way, how I look at backup running backs. When you look at like Zeke versus can't remember his name right now, Pollard. Last year, Pollard averaged more yards per carry, but there's also a different mindset from the defense when Pollard's in versus when Zeke's in. And that's what I think, that they actually might get more momentum from Teddy Bridgewater by having him come in, beat up some of the second stringers, and then carry that momentum into playing the first stringers against the Seahawks next game. So in a way, it actually might be more beneficial for Bridgewater if they were truly going to make this a 50-50 proposition, to give him the backup reps, the receiving cores deep enough that they can still be successful and get some momentum, and then take on the starters next week, after getting a little bit of your feet wet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there. I think where I currently stand is that it almost doesn't matter who starts for this team. They give me hardcore 2020 Bears vibes, where they brought in Nick Foles to compete with Mitch.
I missed that 2020. Who was murdered? Not Dateline. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no. The year of our Lord 2020, or somebody's Lord 2020. But yeah, the Bears bring in Foles. Neither guy impressed in camp. Neither guy really stood out. Mitch, was, I guess, the de facto winner because he was the incumbent. But we saw how quick of a leash Matt Nagy had for him. And I think we might get a similar scenario play out here, all things considered. But it doesn't look good for the Broncos with either of these guys necessarily, unless Teddy can get back to, I know I don't want to discount his play last year. I know it wasn't bad, but I don't think it gets them necessarily over the hump with that roster, especially in that division. So unfortunately for the Broncos, I don't think it matters too much, but they probably want to see Drew Lock go out and take the job and at least make the week 1 decision easy. And then, it's inevitable he's going to make a mistake and you can pull him later, I suppose, and get Teddy in.
Well, but that's the exact issue here. Is you look at this offensive roster, and it's a little bit, to call it stacked, but it's pretty impressive compared to the other rosters out there. You've got Courtland Sutton coming back, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. Your offensive line, now that Garrett Bowles for some reason started playing football again. He forgot how to his first 2 years in the league. And then you got Melvin Gordon, and I'm super pumped for Javonte Williams in that backfield. Yeah. You have everything that you need except for that one most important position. And so, since you have a handicap there, you take the guy that's just not going to fuck it up for you.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I just don't know if that to me is a very conservative aiming for
You can
9-10 win strategy.
you can call it conservative, but remember, we're talking about Teddy Bridgewater coming off the best year of his career last year, and that's better than his Pro Bowl year. I get that he only won 5 games last year, but that was without their all around running back, wide receiver, offensive weapon, whatever you want to call him, in McCaffrey, and he had 4, for the first time in history, had 4 people go over 4,000 yards in that offense. So I don't get the slack on Teddy Bridgewater because he ran an effective offense last year.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what stands out to me are the vibes that I get off it, are the 4 wins, and then he threw 15 touchdowns. It's with 11 interceptions. It's not like he lit the world on fire. And that Pro Bowl year that you're talking about, like, was really not impressive. It's 3,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Without diving into who else made the Pro Bowl or missed the Pro Bowl that year. I mean, I understand your point. If the Broncos get 2020 Teddy Bridgewater, then it gets them in the conversation for sure. I think their aspirations are a little higher than that, but ultimately Vic Fangio is the defensive head coach. Maybe that wins out and he takes the guy that he feels is going to protect the ball more, run the offense more efficiently. And as far as we know, that is Teddy. So,
I mean, he threw for almost 1,000 more yards than Drew Lock last year, threw 1 less touchdown and 4 fewer interceptions. Like, if we're comparing apples to apples, this is Teddy Bridgewater's job. And I don't think that
I'm not pounding the table for Drew Lock
has the same. If it was Elway still making the calls, I think that, Lock gets the nod. But since he's removed himself from his terrible acumen as a quarterback assessor, I mean, Trevor Siemian is the only winning quarterback for the Broncos since Manning left. Osweiler. I mean, you can just throw out you can throw out 7 different quarterbacks, and they all have losing records except for Trevor Siemian. And that's
a sad stat.
That's why we move on to That's why we take Bridgewater at this point.